I'm getting out of school to listen to jazz. Grant, this is a very serious question I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on this? Do you like getting out of school to listen to jazz?
Of course.
Yeah. You know, slice of jazz. You know, peep your shirt. Yo, man, the low light on this is great. Carter, how's it going?
Pretty good. You know, I wasn't expecting to watch a jam, but you know, it's a pleasant surprise.
You know?
We get to see a drummer that played with Buddy Rich when he was 5.
Yes, my man's right there, Mr. Thompson, back behind the freaking bass. Right, that man right there played with Buddy Rich. That's my clickbait title. We got Buddy Rich's drummer to come to our school. Okay, but like, yeah, I'll be back with y'all when there's actual music going on. Till then,
You learn something new.
I learn something new every day.
And Executive Director of the Academy for Scholastic and Personal Success, which started here at Washington High School where I used to teach way back in the last century. It's still working with students of color to help them understand who they are so that they can have a better and more positive self-concept. That idea is not relegated to students of color. However, this, as you know, is African American History Month. And so when I was teaching here, one of the things I used to do was always make sure that there was something happening for African American History Month. As Executive Director of the Academy, we decided to do the same thing again, particularly as regards Ray Blue, who was going to be available at this time. And we said, yay. So, we want to take the opportunity to give you some information. For me, everything's a lesson. It doesn't have to be boring, but you do have to learn something. And so the idea of jazz as an African American construct, I think, is something that a lot of people don't know about. And so Dr. White's mantra number something is there's always more to know, and then Dr. White's mantra number something else is you don't know what you don't know until you know it. So you're in both of those situations today. You'll learn something about jazz, you'll learn something about jazz as pertains to African American culture. You'll leave here knowing something that you didn't know when you came in, maybe, and you'll hear some pretty decent music. Maybe that should be number one. So, the three gentlemen who are going to be playing and talking and instructing today all have a Cedar Rapids roots, which I thought was pretty nifty. They will be playing, let me say this loud and clear, they will be playing on Saturday at Mount Mercy University, and you are all invited to come and hear them play in a concert venue at Macaulay Theater. It's $10, which is really cheap for live music anywhere in the world, or $15 if you pay at the door. So if you're impressed by this and want to know or hear more, please come out on Saturday. Ray Blue and the world of jazz and blues. Mr. Blue, as I said, has Cedar Rapids roots. He went to the University of Iowa and also to William Penn. He is the leader and saxophone player, Mr. Blue. Eric Thompson, born and bred in Cedar Rapids.
Yeah.
And Mr. Hilliard Hill Green. I'm going to turn the program over to them, and you just be ready to be loud. Thank you.
Okay, for just a second. Who's got the clipboard right now? With the
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Now we feel welcome. We're really happy to be here, and we have a very exciting program for you. I'm not being braggadocious about it because it is going to be very exciting. It's about history. It's about the contribution to world culture that we have made from America. America is a nation of immigrants. Therefore, we are all here from somewhere else, except for the Native Americans. We all have contributions. We all have high value. And with that in mind, keep that in mind. We're going to begin by talking about the contribution of jazz. Now, the word jazz was coined by journalists because the musicians just called it music. This music came out of the institution of slavery, sadly enough. But out of some of those sad situations, or many sad situations, many good things come out. You've all probably heard the phrase, necessity is the mother of invention. Well, there's another one. There's a sign in Chinese that means crisis. Well, in a crisis, there's opportunity and danger. We take the opportunities. Because life is full of a series of different kinds of crises. And crises simply mean that things have gone out of order, and there's some confusion and adversity. But there is always an opportunity, and you take that road. We're going to begin now with something spiritual. Our music came out of the slave fields, that whole experience. The Middle Passage came out of Africa. And we're going to do a tune now that's called Afro Blue. Thank you. Now, during this time we spend together this morning, I'm gonna move along a timeline, and basically what we're gonna do is talk about how these contributions of this music, of this art form, played a role in world culture, and I'll explain why I say world culture as opposed to just American culture. And I'm going to pick out a few of our significant composers to play a tune by. This one was written by John Coltrane, a tune called Afro Blue. But this music from the there were field hollers. All this music is very spiritual. And one of the ways in which the slaves were controlled was that they were not allowed to use the drum. They were not allowed to learn to read and write. But specifically, the drum was banned because that was a form of communication. Okay. And slavery was not a happenstance. It was very much thought out, very much planned. You know, how else do you control the majority? You know, when you're the minority, and you control so much. Much of it was done by psychological means. You know, quick story: New York, Wall Street was the largest port for slaves on the East Coast, New York. We hear about the North being free and all the other. Well, it's not true. The fact is that it was the slave trade was an industry, you know. And in New York, in Lower Manhattan, there's a place called the African Burial Ground. Thousands and thousands of people that were buried. Those who had either perished or were executed, their heads were put on poles in the harbor. And when the slave ships came in, and the slaves would look out and see that, you can imagine what it did to them, how they thought about things. Very frightening. No, it's not a very pretty picture, but it's the truth. We still have a lot of healing to do. And you're the ones who are going to help to make sure that that process moves along, because you'll come into your time. It's important to know our history, because it is our history, all of ours. So, with that being said, we're going to move on. And there's a city in the South called New Orleans. And New Orleans was a place of commerce. There were a lot of different nationalities of people there: French, Caribbean, African, British, etc., etc. And there was something very different about New Orleans, because they dealt with the people of color, the subservience, in a little different way. They had a place called Congo Square, and there was a tradition in which musicians from all the different cultures would come, and they were allowed to be together, and the music was shared. That's one of the reasons why New Orleans is such a special place. And it's typically called the birthplace of jazz. But in Congo Square, it would be like festival. And you see a variety of cultures and hear all types of music. So we're gonna do something that typifies a New Orleans groove. It's called the New Orleans second line. And it goes like this.
going on?
Thank you.
I love when
That's
that
Eric Thompson. Eric Thompson on the drum.
Yeah! Mr. Thompson!
It's rhythm. Rhythm. It all started with the drum. In music, we have to have rhythm, we have to have harmony, and we have to have melody. The power of three. In harmony, we have the 1, the 4, and the 5. Without either one of those, the music is flatlined. The power of three. Positive, negative, neutral. Any one of those is missing, no light bulbs. Power of three. Slavery was a horrible experience, and many made efforts to get away from it, move out of the place where it was absolute law to a part of the country where it wasn't absolute law. And Mr. Hill has a short, a very profound story to tell. Mr. Hill Green.
Good morning. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, Jim. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble with water.
If you're a slave, one of the things that you want to do most of all in life was escape or be rid of slavery, get out of slavery. So the coded message from that song, Wade in the Water, is about when you escape, you walk through water, so to throw the bloodhounds off your scent.
Yeah. Broski just killed that.
After slavery came Jim Crow. Segregation was the law. One of the opportunities that came out of segregation was the fact that those who were musicians spent a lot of time together developing the music. There were so many other social restrictions. Most of their time, as musicians need, was spent with one another, working out different ideas, sharing ideas. There was a lot of sharing in the community. None of this, I got mine, you get yours. It didn't work that way. We don't prosper that way. And the fact that that was not the way is why the music became so powerful. It drew others into it. Jazz was the reason that the segregation line was crossed more often than not. We helped folks cross the color line. A very significant move. Now there were black politicians who were elected right after the Civil War. But a significant social change began with jazz because whites came in to hear this music and to learn the music. And when they brought it out, they were allowed to play and make more money. But the point was that it was our music that spawned all of this. We crossed the color line before they did in sports. It took Jackie Robinson another almost 50 years. And then up until 2000 up until President Obama. Big moves. During the Civil Rights era, jazz didn't join the Civil Rights movement. The Civil Rights movement joined jazz.
Say it again.
Gotta repeat
The
that.
Civil Rights movement did not join jazz. Jazz did not join the Civil Rights movement. And I'll tell you why. The Civil Rights movement joined jazz. Musicians and the music expresses the conditions of the times. It speaks loudly. As some might say, jazz was one of the reasons why Barack Obama was elected president. Some might say. But this music speaks the conditions that people live in, that live with. It's an expression itself. We're going to play something by George Gershwin. And we're going to start to move away from New Orleans. George Gershwin wrote a piece of music that reflected conditions of life in New Orleans, and that was one called Porgy and Bess. And this is one of the compositions that came out of that. Thank you. Well, that was a tune written by George Gershwin, not an African American, but an American who wrote about an African American experience. Our music has moved all around the world, all around the world. And I've been fortunate, and so has Mr. Green, been fortunate to do a lot of traveling overseas. Our music is celebrated and studied all around the world. When we go to perform outside of the U.S., the venues are full. Full. There are lines waiting to come in to hear our music. Well, see, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just our music. It's our culture that to celebrate. Leave politics out of it. Put that aside. Because people around the world, contrary to what you hear and see in the news, are just like you and I. They have the same needs. They want to raise their children. They want to take care of their families. They want to contribute to their communities. And they want to worship the way they want to worship. Period. Period. That's the people. And they celebrate our music. This music that came out of the African American experience. And it encompassed everyone. Since we're a nation of immigrants, we have contributions from everyone who came here. We study classical music, European classical music. Music belongs to everyone. There's something of real value there, so we study that too. That's incorporated in our music of jazz. No, the Europeans did not invent harmony. They have a specific harmony. There's plenty of harmony in Africa. Any culture that plays music has harmony. And they have rhythm and they have melody. Therefore, there's music. And these are the simple facts. And this music of jazz, which we celebrate, is something very special. Now, we can raise our flag now. This is really American. Okay? It's our American music. It's our American culture. And we need to celebrate and embrace that. Because it's a part of all of us. Every single person in here has been affected by everyone else who came to this country earlier on. Every single person. The whole issue of racism, well, it's a tool. It's a tool to keep people separated. We don't have to use that tool. And when it comes to this music, there's no place for it. We can't speak from our hearts with that in there. And that's why our music is so beautiful. Because that's where it comes from, our hearts and our experiences and our souls. We're going to do a number now by a gentleman named Charlie Parker. One of his. This gentleman came along, he and Dizzy Gillespie put music together that is still being worked on and figured out. This came through in the 40s. It's a music called bebop. And I'm jumping around the timeline, but I'm gonna go back a little before then as well. I can't leave out Duke Ellington.
Mm-hmm. Central.
We're gonna do one of Charlie's tunes. It's called Billy's Bounce.
Close.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is the jazz blues. It's the blues, and which is at the root of all of jazz. Jazz is the great grandparent of blues. Is the great grandparent of jazz. And that element is inside all of the music. I want to mention quickly about a gentleman, Duke Ellington, Edward Kennedy Ellington. One of the most prolific composers the world has ever known, African American, born in Washington, D.C. Now, one of the reasons why this is really significant for all of you is this. Duke had a mantra. I read a couple of the biographies about Duke. I love reading about people, and seeing documentaries, and talking to people. Duke's parents taught him that he was a very special person and that he deserved to have good things in life. He deserved to have good things in life, as all of you do. You deserve to have good things. And that's how he lived his life. His success was based on that.
Attention, all class officers and student senate officers. Please meet in room 205A during iLearning for an assembly meeting.
I can't, so I'm sorry.
Riley Lucas,
I'm not
Lily
going.
Young, and Liam Charter. Please report to main office.
I'm not going.
Brady Anderson, Delia Table, please report to main office.
Now, anyone else who did something, go now so they don't call your name, all right?
I'll go now, man.
Oh, rip, I'm not going.
Oh, there they go. Okay. So please remember
staying
this.
here.
You deserve to have good things. We're going to play one of Duke's numbers. It was written by by his alter ego, Mr. Billy Strayhorn, who was many years younger than him. Matter of fact, Billy was composing when he was your age. It's a tune called Take the A Train.
Yeah, take the A train. They don't really need me. Class president don't mean jack. Oh, yeah, I know what this. Yes, it's the Black National Anthem. Oh, That's my drum teacher.
Dr. Rick White, Executive Director of the